Right, the modeling process finished. Now let's start working with materials and shaders. So for the floor, I found this wood floor. So amazing from Sigimod. I'm going to use it here instead of my previous floor. The textures are missing, so I'm gonna use the real-link bitmaps to find the textures. I have downloaded it previously, so I'm just now linking the textures. Right, we just need to rotate the UV 45 degrees. Just don't forget to push the A key for rotate the snap. We're just matching the size of the floor to the room. Yeah, I hide the walls by taking the option display as box in the object properties panel. For the wall, the brick wall, in fact, I'm going to use unwrap because we are going to use displacement map. So it's better to have something clear. Just an unfold mapping is enough for it, and just stitching the UV sectors, UV islands. Pretty simple. Yeah, the other polygons that are behind the wall, we don't need them, so we can put them aside and just use the faces or polygons that we always see in the scene. Yeah, for the bricks, I'm going to use Quicksalt Bridge. I'm just searching for a good brick wall texture. I'm looking for something like this, sort of hammered brick wall. I need a little bit of depth, so So this one also looks good, but maybe a little bit noisy. Let's try something else. No, this one also no. Yeah, this one looks good. I'm going to download it. After downloading in Quixel Bridge, then the export options appear here, as you see. You can specify the size, the software we are going to use, the format. And of course, before all this, we should select our object in the scene so that when it's going to be exported from Quixel, it can recognize the object. Yeah, this way. And yeah, naturally the texture is very big. You can easily scale the UV islands. And those ones we don't need. Yeah, this one, we scale it. We can find a reasonable size. Also, how it fits to the objects, other objects. Pretty simple. Yeah, here we need some chamfer, a little bit of chamfer to avoid the hard edges. Yeah, this area, yeah, we have the hard edge. So what we can do here is that we can go back and just edit our profile, the spline profile that we had from past. You can find it here. Yeah. So we can just easily fillet these sharp points. Yeah. So, because they look very bad if they're sharp. You know, we can easily chamfer these edges because the object is very clean. So there is no problem. There is no chaos. What I want to do here is that I want to separate these elements so that they look more natural in the rendering. Because in reality they are also made this way, so that a little bit of shadow that we see in the connection point, it will be very important. We just can use the cap Very easy. Yeah, I'm using the polygon simple Fstorm wood. It's very complicated. I use their website a lot, Polygon. Yeah, and very, very important and helpful script here, material texture loader. You can specify the folder and it will gather all the files, the albedo, the normal, the glossiness, everything, and it will produce the material. It's very useful, very useful. Yeah, first we create it and then drag it to the slate material. Pretty simple. Yeah, for the UV mapping, yeah, we can apply them separately. This way that we can apply a edit poly for one element, for each element. Then we apply the appropriate UVW map on that element. And again, applying another edit poly modifier, and then applying another UVW map for that element. And of course here, as you see, it's totally easier and better to just copy paste the UVW modifiers and just correct the directions. I have applied all the needed modifiers that I work with them regularly here on the modifier panel, so I can reach them easily. Yeah, so for each element, one edit poly and one UVW map. It makes the job really easier. Right. Okay, we can now run the RT mode. Of course, we don't have any light here, so yeah, just to be sure that there is no any source of light here. Okay, yeah, the first thing I do is to apply the environment texture, and here I use the HDRI maps from HDRI Heaven. And since the scene is, the time is at night, so I'm going to use a night HDRI. Yeah, we can easily load it inside the Fstorm bitmap. $16K, yeah, it's a heavy file. Yeah, and don't forget to change the gamma to 2.2. Very important to get the correct light. We can open the RT mode. Okay. So we can see the effect of the environment map or HDRI directly, how it affects the scene. So we can just drag it on the environment slot and enable it. Right. We have two windows in the scene, so the environment map can come through them. I also forgot to put the environment map on spherical mode. I didn't know. Yeah, first I use an exaggerated number, like 8, 9, 10, something like this, to be sure that it works. Yeah. So instead of that, we need to increase the exposure. Very helpful. And also very important in the Fstorm camera, please don't forget to turn off the tone mapping override mode, because it doesn't let you to see the rendering effect. Right. Okay, so since the main source of the light in the scene is the lampshade, and it's a translucent material, so first let's make this material using the Fstorm material. Okay, it's naturally white. It's sort of very bright gray. Here we can use a Fstorm color map. Okay, we need a lighter version of this color to assign to the translucency. Yeah, translucency is very important. If you don't do it, it won't work. Yeah, it's naturally a little bit transparent, so I increase the refraction and also reflection a little bit. Both of them should be glossy, as the object is very diffuse. Okay, now let's create the lamp material. That's naturally a self-illuminating shader. Yeah, we need to enable the emission, increase the power, and of course change the color. Don't forget to change the color. If you don't do it, it won't work anymore. Yeah, it's appearing in the scene. You can increase the power. It's starting to appear. I'm using the number 100, and it's illuminating the scene very well. The blue effect of the environment is a lot. We can decrease it. We totally need to increase the exposure to compensate the absence of the light in the scene. The brick wall is very saturated. I'm trying to decrease the saturation using a Fstorm color correction map. It's better now. Okay, I'm gonna increase the brick wall displacement. To see it in a little bit more clear. Okay, we need more exposure. You can see the effect of the environment texture is a lot. You can decrease it. Yeah. And compensate it, as I said, using the exposure to increase the exposure. It's a little bit tricky, this kind of scenes. It's better now. Okay, now I'm trying to find a good LUT file to apply to the render. Maybe it's sort of delicate mood. I also decreased the strength of the LUT. Usually something between 0.6 or 0.7. It works good. Something between average and maximum. Okay, still not found the desirable LUT. This one is good, but with a very high contrast. So let's try another one. I'm gonna go for a Kodak Hector. This one. This is Ectochrome. I can try the Kodak Hector 25++. This one looks normal. Yeah, I can increase the strength, but also because the scene becomes very green, we need to change the white balance to make it a little bit warmer. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, I will also increase the sharpness. It makes the render more beautiful. The displacement on the brick wall was a little bit too much. I'm decreasing it. We also need to decrease the bump map. Because the higher amounts of bump map or normal map, they make the texture chaotic or noisy, so we need to decrease that one as well. Right, let's work on the table material. Okay, I found this texture. Yeah, again, we can use the material texture loader script. Very useful. Just click and drag. This works very fine for PBR shaders. We just need to correct the UVs. Yeah, we can simply copy and paste the UVW modifiers. Right. Okay, looks good, but a little bit yellow. So we can decrease the yellowish mood of the texture by applying some color correction map. But of course, here I'm going to use one of the polygon dirt textures or smudge textures for the glossy map. Looks good, just since the camera lens is tele, when we rotate the scene, the back walls appear in the render. Well, of course, it's not a huge deal. Here I'm going to decrease this extremely yellow color of the table, the texture. But first, let's increase the glossiness. It's good always to have numbers around 50, 60 for both reflection and refraction map and refraction glossiness map. So they would be a combination of the texture map and sorry, the shader's nature. Yeah, it looks better now by making it a little bit more pinky or beige, in fact. It's okay now. I'm going to increase the exposure more, so the objects could be more visible inside the scene or in the render, and decrease the environment multiplayer. It looks good now. Okay. In order to have more light in the scene, we can use a very dim or weak light source above the objects, as for example as IES light, very soft and weak light from top, so that we can have a little bit of variety in the lighting. And here I'm going to apply a very simple IES file. And of course, something very important is directionality. Right. I'm using a number around 10 because I don't want the light to diffuse all over the scene. I just want it to illuminate the table, the objects around the table, not other parts of the scene. Okay, I'm going to work on the material of the plug, electricity plug, and the cables. I will apply only one plastic shader to all of them for the sake of simplicity. And here I'm going to use a mixed material. Okay, so first let's make the base shader. That's a very, very glossy, completely glossy white plastic. need to increase the index of refraction. And also increase the reflection, make it completely glossy. And also it needs to be translucent because it's plastic. It's very important to notice. Plastic is translucent. So you either change the color of the translucency or its number. Anyways, it's important to have it in the shader. And also a little bit of refraction, just a little bit. Now let's create the upper layer of this shader. That's a sort of clear reflective material. So there is a glossy shader under beneath, and there is a clear reflective shader over it, like this. To create plastic shaders, totally shaders like this, that they have two forms of reaction in terms of reflection, it's better to have two shaders over each other, because it's in fact a combination of two shaders. In reality, the base material is the self material of the object, but it has also a layer of sealer or shellac over it, so we need a reflective material over the base material as well, like the car paint, in fact. Here I'm just testing a Fstorm fall-off map as mixture amount, but it doesn't work very well, I guess. So I will delete it, and yeah, can just increase the upper shader to 0.2, and I guess it's enough because we don't want to see its effect too much on the material. Yeah, something like this. A very slight number here. So we now have two kinds of reflections on our objects. One is the basic shader, it's the glossy shader, and another one is the sharp reflective shader, that's the upper shader. Yeah, I guess it works good. Yeah, at the same time that it absorbs all the reflection, it's glossy as well. Okay. I think it's okay. Yeah, we can always play with the IOR or index of refraction. We shouldn't be afraid of playing with this number, because if we need more reflection, we cannot just achieve it using increasing the reflect number. So if the object is very reflective, you can increase the IOR. Okay, so here I'm just playing with these, I don't know, sort of plate or ashtray, I don't know, something like this, to make it a little bit more reflective. But because it's a multi-sub-object material, I need to know what's the ID of this object. So yeah, that's number 3, and it's a good and easy way to find the correct material in these kind of situations when we have multi-sub-object material. To first know the ID channel of that element or that object. So here, yeah, I'm gonna give it a little bit of translucency because it's stone or marble, something like this, and increase the IOR, as I said, to have more reflections. In the many situations, the reason we cannot get enough reflections over objects is that we don't increase the IOR. I'm here playing with the volume distance. To get a better level of translucency. However it works good, I guess. Okay, let's create another material layer here. It's a good idea to have everything in different separated layers in the slate material so that we don't confuse things. Yeah, I want also to increase the brightness of these plants. First, let's see what's the element. Yeah, it's 15. So it's material number 15. Okay, so it's totally 18 materials. So from down to top, yeah, it's this one. Okay, let's see what we can do about this one. It actually has the translucency map. I'm just gonna increase the refraction to see how it responds. However, that area is very dark, and it's natural for the plant to be dark as well. Right. Then I'm gonna play with refraction to see how it works. It becomes better, brighter. But just a little bit. Let's try the glossiness. No, it's okay. That way. Okay. Let's save the scene. Yeah, I'm playing with the frame size a little bit to find a better or more appropriate size. And something also to notice is to add all the elements, render elements. The computer freezes for a few moments. Okay. Because we don't have a lot of textures in the scene now, I can enable the no compression option for some textures like the stable texture, so they will become more clear and sharper in the render. That this is a good option to, in fact, increase the resolution of the textures in Fstorm. Because by default they are disabled, but if you have enough VRAM or GPU memory, you can use this low compression option to have a better appearance of your textures in the render. So for this one, I'm also going to do it. Yeah, I'm increasing the IOR for this object as well because it needs more reflection. It's important to decrease the reflection number. The mix amount, I mean. Because the textures reflection map always doesn't let the object receive a lot of reflection, so it's better to decrease that mix amount. Yeah, the shadows and reflections are working well in that corner. They're in harmony. Okay, so let's add a photo frame to our scene on the wall as well. Again, I downloaded it from my subscription on the CG mode. Yeah, it was very beautiful, very nice photo frame from Arsen Musladinov. Musladinov. We should merge it into our scene. We have little frames, we just need one of them. Of course, they're in different sizes, but we need a very small size. The smallest one. Yeah, I'm just testing it over the wall. And if you notice, I have also paused the render to do all these things easier. Okay. Okay, the textures again need to be loaded. So I'm going to use the relink bitmaps again. Yeah, again, I applied the Fstorm convert tool, scene convert tool, just to be sure that I don't have any non-Fstorm materials or shaders in the scene. Okay, I'm going to just use one of these frames. The one on the left works well, in my opinion. I have paused the render. Now we can start it. Yeah, as you see, the frame around the photo is very dim and dark. So naturally we need to increase the reflection on it. Just we need to see what's the it doesn't have any element ID, so I guess I should find it randomly. Like it seems to be the first one. This one is the photo, it's natural. Yeah, this one. Yeah. If you want more reflections, yeah, naturally should increase the IOR. Yeah, now it can absorb the light. This photo frame, I just wanted to have a sort of decorative role, something not very clear, just to be there. Yeah, it looks pretty harmonious with the scene. transition from the warm color of the wall to the blue color of the photo frame to the green color of the plant. Yeah, everything looks in harmony. Waiting a little bit to see more render results. It's okay. Right. Okay, so I wanted just to show you my render settings. Okay, the samples, yeah, I used 14,000. It looked enough for the final render. The maximum depth 16, the light samples 8. So the noise threshold, very important, 0.003. Yeah, the exposure 60. Yeah, the burn value, I decreased it a lot, -1, because of the lampshade. If I don't decrease it, in fact, the render will be burned. Yeah, so something between -0.3 and -0.3 and -1. But of course, it's also solvable in post-production as well. Yeah, here I just chose -1. Yeah, and the image sharpness, yeah, you can apply what you want, just something reasonable. And yeah, and the environment strength is 0.05. It has no direct lighting. There was no reason almost for it. Yeah, and the render elements, they're ready. So we can now save all the elements by the button Save All at Once. Right. And now we can go for the post process. Yeah, they're all saved. This is the final render. As you see, very sharp and neat. The darkness and brightness, they're all in harmony. Okay, so we go for the post process.